Have you ever had someone call your bluff, expecting you to fold, not realizing you'd already laid out every card in your hand? Have you ever had someone look you dead in the eye and hand you the exact exit you needed? Think it was a threat? Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. And by the time Jenny figured out I wasn't bluffing, it was already too late. I'm Jackson, 29, male bank manager at a mid-sized regional bank in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm the guy who reads the fine print on everything. Lease agreements, insurance policies, dinner receipts. My co-workers call me methodical. Jenny called it boring. Looking back, that gap between how she saw me and who I actually am is exactly why everything went down the way it did. Jenny was 27, worked in marketing, and had this magnetic energy that pulled people in. She walked into rooms like she already owned them, loud and confident and impossible to ignore. I'm the opposite, quieter, more deliberate, the kind of person who'd rather have 3 real friends and 30 people who kind of know my name. For a while, we worked. She pushed me to loosen up. I helped her think things through. Or at least, that's the story I was telling myself. We'd been together 3 years and living together for 14 months in my condo. My name on the lease, my name on the utilities, my deposit, my furniture. Jenny contributed a flat $600 a month toward expenses, which barely covered groceries. I never made it a big issue because I was earning well, and she was always saving up. I figured that meant building toward something. I didn't know what she was actually building toward until way later. And then there was Marcus. Marcus had been Jenny's best friend since before I came into the picture. He was 30, worked in event planning, easygoing, charming, the kind of guy everybody likes immediately. Jenny always introduced him as her gay best friend. Like that label was supposed to settle any question before it was even asked. And honestly, for a long time, it did. I didn't think twice about it. Marcus was around constantly. Dinners at our place, movie nights, Sunday brunches, you name it. He and Jenny would disappear into the bedroom for an hour at a time to talk. And the one time I mentioned it, quietly, casually, Jenny looked at me like I'd accused her of something terrible. He's gay, Jackson. What is your problem? I dropped it. More than once, I dropped it. But numbers don't lie. And the numbers were starting to feel off. It started 6 weeks before everything collapsed. Jenny brought up Marcus's business over dinner one Tuesday. Same casual tone she'd used to mention the weather was changing. Marcus is starting his event planning company. He needs about $15,000 to get off the ground. I told him we'd help. I set my fork down. You have the money, Jackson. It's not a big deal. That's not how we works. That's how you asking me for $15,000 works. She shrugged, like I was being difficult for no reason. He's my best friend. Think of it as an investment. In what exactly? I've never seen a business plan. I've never had a real conversation with Marcus about his finances or his company. I can't hand $15,000 to someone based on a conversation over pasta. She gave me this tight little smile that didn't reach her eyes. You're so uptight about money. You know that? It's exhausting. And there it was. That word, exhausting. She'd been pulling out more and more lately whenever I didn't immediately agree with something she wanted. I stored it away and kept eating. Over the next 2 weeks, the pressure got louder. Jenny brought the money up every couple of days, then every single day. Then Marcus himself came over for dinner one Friday, all easy smiles and confidence, and slid a single laminated sheet across the table toward me like he was presenting at a board meeting. Here's my business overview, he said. I looked at it. 1 laminated page. A logo, a tagline, 3 bullet points. No financial projections. No market analysis. No operational plan. Marcus, I appreciate you coming over to talk about this, but one page is enough for me to base a $15,000 decision on. Jenny called from the kitchen without even looking over. It's not a bank loan, Jackson. It's helping a friend. $15,000 is not a small favor. It's a significant financial commitment, and I need to see real documentation before I consider it. Marcus leaned back in his chair, still relaxed. Totally get it, man. I do, but you'd really be helping us out. Us. He said us. Not me, not the business. Us. I didn't react. I just nodded and changed the subject. But that word sat in the back of my mind for the rest of the night. After Marcus left, Jenny and I had the worst fight we'd had in 3 years. She called me selfish, cold, said I didn't care about the people she loved, said Marcus was like family, and I was treating him like a stranger asking for a handout. I told her I wasn't going to hand anyone $15,000 based on a laminated sheet with 3 bullet points. Round and round it went. Neither of us moved. And then she looked at me, done with the conversation, done with me, and said it. You know what? If you don't like it, then leave. She said it the way people say things they think are too dramatic to ever actually happen. A power move. A conversation ender. The kind of thing you throw out when you're sure the other person is too settled, too comfortable, too afraid to actually do it. She didn't know me as well as she thought. I looked at her for a moment. Then I looked around the condo. My condo. And I said, "Yeah, okay." She blinked. "What?" "I will." Now here's where being a methodical, fine print reading, never makes a move without thinking it through guy actually pays off. I didn't storm out. I didn't pack a bag dramatically and sleep on Derek's couch that night. I went to bed, and while Jenny slept thinking she'd won the argument, I started building my exit quietly and cleanly. Monday morning, from my office, I contacted my bank's HR department and rerouted my direct deposit to a separate account Jenny had no knowledge of. The joint account we shared had about $4,200 in it, mostly for my contributions. I wasn't going to drain it overnight because that would have created legal complications. Instead, I simply stopped adding to it. Whatever was in there stayed, but nothing new was going in. Then I called a real estate attorney. Even though my name was the only name on the lease, I wanted to handle everything cleanly. No room for disputes later. My attorney confirmed that since Jenny wasn't on the lease and had no formal tenancy agreement, I had no legal obligation to provide advance notice beyond basic courtesy. But I decided to give her 30 days anyway. Not because I had to, because I wanted everything to be airtight, no messy disputes, no claim she could make later that I'd been unreasonable. My older brother Derek had a spare room. I called him that same week. He didn't ask a lot of questions, just said, "Come when you're ready." Over 3 consecutive weekday mornings while Jenny was at work, I moved my most important things to Derek's place. Clothes, personal documents, my grandfather's watch, my laptop. Nothing dramatic. I left all the furniture, the kitchen stuff, everything shared. Clean lines. I gave Jenny formal notice on a Thursday evening, 2 weeks after the fight. We'd been in this uncomfortable holding pattern where she seemed to think I was going to eventually give in about Marcus's money, and I was quietly finishing a plan she didn't know existed. I sat down across from her on the couch. "I found a place," I said. "I'll be fully moved out in 2 weeks. The lease is in my name, so you'll need to make arrangements for yourself." The color dropped out of her face. "What?" "You told me if I didn't like it, I could leave." I thought about it. "You were right." "Jackson, I didn't mean..." That was in the middle of an argument. You can't be serious. I've talked to a real estate attorney. I'm giving you 30 days from today voluntarily because you're not on a lease and I have no legal requirement to provide that. I'd recommend you start looking for a place. She stared at me. You're doing this because I asked you to help Marcus. I'm doing this because we want different things. She called Marcus before I'd even left the room. I could hear pieces of it through the wall. Her voice low and urgent, then is coming through on speaker, already strategic. He can't just kick you out. You should get a lawyer. She did get a lawyer. Her attorney called my attorney about 4 days later. My attorney's response was clean and simple. The lease was solely in my name. Jenny had no formal tenant rights as an informal occupant, and the 30-day notice I provided exceeded what was legally required. That call lasted about 11 minutes. Nothing came of it. Then the guilt campaign started. Jenny came to me with tears and an apology, said Marcus had put too much pressure on everything, said she'd been wrong to push the money issue, said she was sorry. It was a convincing performance. She was good at that. I listened to the whole thing. Then I said, I appreciate that. The timeline stays. That flipped her back to anger fast. She said I was punishing her for one argument, that I'd always use money to control her, that I was emotionally unavailable. She sent me articles about financial abuse. Then, and this was its own level of audacity, she texted my mother. My mom called me within an hour. Jackson, she reached out to me. I know, Mom. I'm handling it. She said you're putting her out with no warning. I gave her 30 days notice in writing. She has a full-time job and a best friend with an apartment she can stay in. She's going to be fine. My mom paused. Is there something you're not telling me? Yeah, I said, but I'm still putting the pieces together. Because here's the thing about being wired the way I am. When something doesn't add up, I don't let it go. I go looking for the missing variable. I've been paying attention to Marcus more carefully since that dinner. The investment pitch, the word us, the angled phone screens, the private hour-long conversations in our bedroom. None of it was proof of anything specific, but all of it together felt like a pattern I hadn't fully mapped yet. I didn't hire anyone or do anything dramatic. I just started paying attention to what was already publicly available. Marcus had filed an LLC for his event planning company 2 months before that dinner. Business filings are public record. So I spent about 10 minutes online and found it. Jenny was listed as co-owner. She'd signed on as a business partner 3 months before they sat across from me asking for $15,000 to fund the business. 3 months. While she was living in my condo, paying $600 a month. She had quietly gone into business with Marcus, and her capital contribution to the LLC, which was also in the filing, was $7,500. She had the money. She'd always had it. The ask wasn't desperation. It was strategy. They wanted more capital, and I was the most convenient source. The whole thing, the dinner, the laminated page, the pressure campaign, had been a play. I sat with that for a full day before I did anything. Now here's where vacation comes in. Jenny and Marcus had been planning a 5-day trip to Sedona for about 2 months. A resort stay, hiking, spa days, the works. She called a friend's trip. She'd booked it about 6 weeks earlier, before everything blew up. Her share of the resort came to roughly $3,200, which she'd put on her personal credit card. But here's where it got interesting. 3 nights of the resort booking had been paid using points and a billing method tied to a credit card Jenny had occasionally used for her household expenses. A card connected to a joint line of credit I had co-signed. It wasn't direct theft or anything like that, more of a financial shell game where paying one thing freed up another. But when Marcus tried to add a rental car to the trip using that same joint credit line, the charge came through for my approval. I declined it. Jenny called me within the hour. The car rental isn't going through. Yeah, I removed myself from that credit line. You should have gotten a notification. Jackson, that's the car we use for travel. There's no we for travel anymore. It's a joint credit line I co-signed that I've now removed myself from. Since we're separating and it's not being used for shared household expenses, I'm legally entitled to do that. My personal card is maxed out. I let that sit there for a second. I thought about the $7,500 she contributed to Marcus's business while paying me $600 a month to live in my condo. You'll need to sort out alternative arrangements, I said. Have a good trip. Jenny. She went anyway. Of course she did. The resort was already paid, and she wasn't going to give me the satisfaction of watching her cancel. But the trip didn't exactly go smoothly. Marcus had booked a wine tasting experience as a surprise add-on. He'd charged it to the joint credit line before I'd removed myself. So the charge didn't process, and the winery canceled the reservation. He tried to rebook on his own card. Declined. His personal credit was apparently stretched thin too, which made sense given that they'd sunk most of their liquid cash into the LLC. Jenny texted me from Sedona. I will leave the contents of that text to your imagination. I read it, set my phone face down, and went to sleep. Derek thought the whole situation was the most entertaining thing he'd ever witnessed in real time. He'd open a beer and ask for updates like he was waiting for a new episode to drop. She had $7,500 the whole time, he said when I told him about the LLC filing. Her capital contribution was right there in the public record. And she sat in your condo eating your food and asked you for $15,000 while paying $600 a month in rent. He shook his head slowly. And this Marcus guy is her business partner. Jackson, he pointed at me. That man is not just her business partner. I already knew, but sometimes you need to hear someone else say it before you let yourself fully sit with it. The confirmation came 11 days after she got back from Sedona. A mutual friend named Priya called me, nervous in that specific way people get when they've been sitting on something they know they should have said sooner. I've been holding on to this, and I shouldn't have been, she said. Marcus isn't gay. He never was. Jenny introduced him that way when you two started dating, because she knew how close they were and figured you'd have a problem with it. They were actually together before you. They dated for about a year before she met you. I don't know exactly what they are now, but I know what she told you was never true. I thanked Priya, told her I genuinely wasn't upset at her for waiting. Meant every word of it. Then I got in my car and drove for about an hour with no destination. The gay best friend. She constructed that from scratch, handed it to me like a given, and I'd accepted it because why wouldn't I? You don't walk into a relationship expecting your girlfriend to build a fictional identity for her ex so she can keep seeing him without friction. But there it was. 3 years of Sunday brunches, hour-long private conversations in our bedroom. The word us slipping out at my dinner table. 3 years. Now here's where I want to be clear about something. The anger was real. Of course it was. But what I did next wasn't driven by anger. It was driven by the same thing that drives everything I do. Precision. Because when I talked to my attorney and mentioned that the LLC had listed my condo as its registered business address, he stopped me mid-sentence. They registered a business at your address without your knowledge or consent, he said. 3 months ago, while Jenny was living there. That's unauthorized use of your property as a registered agent address. You can file to have that removed, and we can send formal notice to both of them. Let's do it. The letter went out within the week. Formal legal, completely cold. The business was required to update its registered address with the state of Arizona. Filing an amendment cost them a $150 state fee and required them to find a new registered address fast, which was its own problem. Marcus's apartment lease had a no business clause in it, so they couldn't use that. Finding a compliant address took them several weeks of scrambling. Then I took care of the joint account. Arizona is a community property state, but that applies to married couples. Jenny and I were never married. Our joint account was simply a shared account, no special legal protection on either side. I withdrew my portion of the balance cleanly, fully documented, and closed my access to the account. Her $800 remained untouched. I didn't take a single dollar that wasn't clearly mine. Then my attorney put together a formal accounting of every shared expense over our 14 months of living together. Every utility, every grocery run I covered above her $600, every shared expense itemized and totaled. The difference between what I contributed to our shared living costs and what she had contributed came out to approximately $19,400, and that was a conservative calculation. I wasn't planning to sue her for it. It wasn't structured as a loan, and we weren't married, so it wasn't realistically recoverable in court anyway. But I wanted her to see the number. I wanted her to open that document and sit with $19,400 staring back at her. She texted me after receiving it. For words, "This is so petty." I didn't respond. About 3 weeks later, Priya mentioned that the event planning business had been close to landing a mid-sized corporate client for a launch event. Real money, real opportunity. But when the client's team did their standard due diligence, they found the LLC had recently had to amend its registered address, its financials were thin, and it couldn't provide documentation of operational stability. The client walked. The deal fell through completely. Marcus apparently tried to reach me through Priya, wanted to clear the air and have a conversation like adults. I had nothing to say to Marcus. Everything that needed to be communicated had been communicated through the appropriate channels, in writing with documentation. Jenny called me once, about 6 weeks after everything was done. She didn't open with an apology. She asked if I was willing to be mature about this and move forward without unnecessary hostility. "I don't have any hostility toward you," I said, which was true. "Then why did you send that accounting letter? Why did you have lawyers contact Marcus about the address?" "Because those were real issues that needed to be handled through proper channels. You wanted to hurt us." There was that word again. Us. I want to protect myself and my property. Those are different things, Jenny. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The vacation fell apart, you know." And I genuinely think she expected that to land somewhere soft in me, like she was waiting for me to feel guilty about a spa trip not going smoothly. "I know," I said. "Marcus is really struggling with the business." "I heard. And none of that bothers you." I thought about the 3 years. The $19,400. The ex-boyfriend she dressed up as a gay best friend and kept in our home. The business she co-owned while asking me to fund it. The laminated page presented as a business plan. The then leave thrown at me like a grenade she assumed was a dud. "No," I said. "Not particularly." She hung up. "I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment in Scottsdale now, 12 minutes from work. Derek came over last weekend and we grilled on the patio and didn't talk about Jenny once, which felt like its own kind of milestone. My finances are exactly where I want them. No shared accounts, no co-sign lines of credit, no $600 a month toward a condo someone else is living comfortably in. The thing I keep turning over isn't even the betrayal itself. It's that moment on the couch. The way she said, "If you don't like it, then leave." Like she was so certain it would never happen. Like I was someone who could be called a bluff and would fold. She handed me the door. She just didn't think I'd actually walk through it. She should have read the fine print. If you stayed through this whole story without skipping ahead, you clearly don't bluff either. So you might as well hit subscribe because there's always more fine print to read.